And we are ready.
Great. Welcome everybody to today's session with Education USA and our guest speakers. If you are tuning in from Facebook Live or from Zoom, please note that we do hope that you will take the opportunity to ask questions and post your comments. So feel free to use the chat feature on either of those platforms, and we will address questions in our Q&A section. But definitely feel free to ask them while they are fresh in your mind. My name is Melissa Deschamps, and I am the Regional Educational Advising Coordinator with Education USA for the Middle East and North Africa. So I'm very happy to welcome everyone again for the session, which is Graduate Study in the United States, a journey from student to professor. We are very much looking forward to engaging with you all. And our session today will start with just this brief welcome and introduction. You will then get to know a little bit about Education USA. You will hear from some of our advisors, getting an overview. We know many of you may be tuning in from different countries, so please know that you can check for an Education USA Center near you by going to the educationusa.state.gov website. As you know, lots of things are going virtual now, so many advisors are much more accessible during online chat hours, during obviously for email and different webinars such as this. So definitely reach out to those closest to you. And then for the main event, the main reason we are here today, we are happy to have with us our guest speakers from California State University in Bakersfield, Doctors Mahmoud Suleiman and Dr. Mark Novak, who you will be hearing from shortly. And then finally, we will conclude with questions. And so again, like I mentioned, feel free to add those to the chat on either platform, and we will get to those as we can. So, and before I turn it over to our guest presenters, you will hear again, like we said, an overview, but we have a faculty member from CSUB, Dr. Mahmoud Suleiman, and then also the Dean of the Extended Education and Global Outreach Office with us as well. And so we will let them kind of give a little bit more of an introduction of themselves once we get to that part. But now I will turn it over to Marwa, who will give us a little bit of an overview of Education USA.
Thank you so much, Melissa. Hi, everyone.
You're
welcome
welcome.
to our session. My name is Marwa Shille, and I am the Education USA Advising Assistant based at the Amir East office in Ramallah, the West Bank. So I would like to give you an overview about Education USA and the services that we offer for the public. So Education USA is the U.S. Department of State network. There are over 430 advising centers in 178 countries and territories around the world. And you can see from the screen these small yellow dots. These are actually our advising centers, and we offer a range of free services. We usually promote U.S. higher education through the different group sessions that we have, the individual consultations. We actually visit different local high schools and universities to talk to students and counselors so they can actually learn more about the U.S. higher education system and the opportunities they can pursue. We also reach out to youth centers and American spaces in our country. We also have the opportunity, to participate in different college fairs and national educational events. And we help U.S. university representatives who visit our country, and we facilitate their visits. And they usually would like to connect with students who are interested in studying in the U.S. And also they usually have their own college fairs for the public. Of course, we also have our virtual sessions and webinars, just like today's session. And because of the pandemic, since March of last year, we actually transitioned to virtual advising, and we have been offering all of our advising services virtually. So the 5 steps to U.S. study is your guide if you would like to study in the U.S. The first step is to research your options. You need to understand which universities and colleges are the best fit for you. It is important for you to research the programs that you are interested in and to take in consideration your personal and professional development that you would like to work on if you'd like to pursue your study in the US. The second step is to finance your studies. It is important for you to understand how much it will cost you to study at a specific US university or college, and what available opportunities in terms of funding are available to you as an international student at that specific institution. The third step is to complete your application. Understanding the application requirements and preparing yourself ahead of time for that process is very important because it is time consuming, and we usually recommend our students and our advisees to at least start the process 12 to 18 months before the admission date. The fourth step is to apply for your student visa. As an international student, after you receive admission from a certain institution and you accept their offer, you need to apply for your visa. And then the fifth and final step is to prepare for your departure. You can actually find more detailed information on each of these steps on the Education USA website, which you can see in red on the screen, educationusa.state.gov. And you will actually see more resources and websites to learn more about the application requirements and the US higher education system. Also on the Education USA website, you actually can find the nearest Education USA advising center that is nearest to you. So you can actually contact them and ask them for more information and follow up after today's session. And now I would like to hand it over to Ishraq, as she is the Education USA Senior Advisor in Saudi Arabia. Ishraq?
Thank you so much, Marwa. So I would like to talk a little bit about like the advantage of studying in the US. So uh, the focus of in critical thinking and hands-on skills that students receive once they start their education in the US is like a very important one. Like when you go there and get into your classes, you're not just listening to your teacher or a professor. You're really involved in the discussions, involved like in bringing your ideas. I do remember when I get into my master's degree, how much involved myself and my classmates where in the classes we were not depending on the inputs of the professor as much as the input of what we bring to the discussion and the matter that we were learning about. So you really teach yourself and learn how to use your critical thinking. You get to do hands-on skills in these classes. Also, you get to work closely with your professors. You get to know them. They get to know you, and you know your skills and how to develop the skills so you can achieve your future goals too. Okay, and also in the US, like there is unmatched strength and like the resources that are available for you to develop your studies, your skills, your research skills, and whatever like measure you are measuring or study you are doing it, like there is a little bit of everything that you will have and you will gain during these 2 years or like 4 years, like while you are in the US. Also, you will be provided with an international experience. If you go to the US, you're not going to be involved with Americans. There will be a lot of international students from around the world that you will be gaining that experience of being culturally sensitive, and also you learn about other peoples and how to deal with them, especially in this time of the world that you need to learn how to deal with people from different parts of the world, because you are not only working with people from your own country. And also it's a chance for you to improve your language and really gain the English language skills. And also the study choices to match what you want is like there is a huge wide of majors and emphasis within each major that you can really focus on. Next, please. So with thousands of graduate level choices in the US, there are like over 1,700 programs to choose from in some fields. There are really specialized research. As I mentioned before, like for example, let's say you want to study engineering. You're not going to only study engineering like in general. Really, there are different emphasis, there's different specialization that you can go through. And it is the same for the other programs that you may be interested in studying. So you could really specialize and broaden your horizon with the focus that you want, so you can achieve your future career goals. Also, there is a very specialized research options and facilities in the US. US institutions are very well known of the research that they bring and how students really benefit and contribute to that. So that's a very good part for you, especially like if you are interested in research. Also, the graduate degrees, there are academic and there are professional master's degree, in which I will talk a little bit about in a little bit, and also for the PhD and other doctoral options. And next, please. So for graduate degrees, the master's degree, there are different types. There's the academic masters and the professional masters. The academic masters typically is like Master of Art or Master of Science, which is typical 1 to 2 years. Many programs now tend to shift to 1 years because of the market needs, that many cannot leave their job for longer time, but typically it's 1 to 2 years. It is like if you are doing it, you typically will do a thesis. There is a thesis requirement which will lead you for a PhD, especially if you are interested in continuing in a PhD and a research. This is the academic one for you. There's the professional master, which is like the MBA, GD, the Master of Architecture, which is typically 1 to 3 years. A structured course of study, like it's not research based study, and it's not really, it does not lead you to a PhD program. It's like this is what you will get just to improve your professional career. Next, please. For the graduate degrees, like in the doctoral level, still there is like the PhD, there is the EDD, there is the doctorate of BA, there is the JSD, which is like for the law. So the PhD is like a research oriented, the EDD is more practical. There is an advanced work coursework in the doctoral, like in which really you are focusing in a topic that you really want to research about and go deep dive in it. There is a dissertation part, so you start with the coursework, then you move to work in your dissertation, and then before you end it, like you have to go through a comprehensive exam, and also like you will go through a committee to defend your dissertation as well. And typically take 3 to 8 years. Many people try to do it in 5 years, but like it could take longer, depends like if you are working or something like, so it's an average 3 to 8 years worth of years. Next, please. So we talked about like the different programs, but now the requirements, in which like we recommend for students to start early. You cannot, like, especially with the graduate degrees, you want to find a program that really appeals to you and really that you want to study, because you're going to spend a lot of time in the class with the courses and researching. So you really want to focus on like what you want to achieve in the future. So you do, like, you have application form and fee, and it is different from one university to another. So you need to pay attention, like, to the deadlines for each university as well. You have to have your academic records, and typically, like, a high GPA is required from universities for a graduate level, especially if you are doing doctorate degree. It's 3.5 and above, or above 3.0 in some universities. You have to have your English proficiency score, especially when you are like for a master's degree. There are programs who might consider conditional admission, in which you will do English courses first. But for doctorate degrees, you have to have your English proficiency test. You also may be required to take GRE, GMAT, or other graduate test scores, depends on the field that you will be emphasizing in. Also, recommendation letters. And when you do recommendation letters, try to get it from people or professors that they really know you, so they can really emphasize in the work that you have been doing, because that will set you also aside from other applicants in that program. A statement of purpose, which is really the same, that It will recognize your work, what you want to achieve, and also it will set you aside from others. So you need to pay attention of that. Some universities requires a CV or resume, or some of the programs, especially like MBA program, they may require work experience because MBA programs are more involved and with people who are in the workforce, and also a proof of financial capability that you can cover your studies. And also I want to mention something very important: accreditation. We always emphasize on accreditation. When you are looking for universities, pay attention to the university or institution if it is accredited or not, because you want to continue your education, you want to get benefit from the degree that you'll be doing. So determine if the institutions meet the minimum standards of equality. We, as Education USA advisors and centers, we only promote accredited US higher education institutions. And for accreditation information, you can go to the ob.ed.gov accreditation or chia.org, in which you will be able to search for universities and find if they are accredited or not. And now I'm going to hand it to our guest speaker. Thank you so much.
Hey, good morning. صباح الخير. مساء الخير. عنا الدنيا الصبح هنا بكاليفورنيا. I am so delighted to join you as Shuruk and Marwa were talking a lot of flashbacks, very pleasant flashbacks about 40 years ago when I was in your position. And I was actually attending the local university in the West Bank, Najah National University. And it was in its infancy at the time, and we had about 3,000 or so plus students. And I was, completing my bachelor's, and I had a dream to go to the States. And I wasn't really fortunate to learn about the MED East and a lot of exchange programs back then, although many of my peers at the time actually took advantage of that, and they got scholarships to go to the States and complete their masters, and some of them completed their doctorates at the time. But my life journey brought me to the States. Regardless, after I finished my bachelor's, I applied on my own, and I think we didn't have internet at the time. We didn't have everything was done manually, so much so that you had to send everything registered mail to make sure that it got to where it should. But I wish we had internet and all that information age and technology where you can follow up within 24 hours, notwithstanding the time difference at the time. So you are at a strategic time, at a strategic place, given that vital part of the world where there's vested interest for you and for the world. It's mainly in the United States, and the world is getting closer and closer every day. I highly encourage you, if you are genuinely interested in seeking those opportunities, to take advantage of them. And they are going to be extremely rewarding and worthwhile in the long run. I will highlight some of those as they pertain to my experience and my journey, and share with you some of the tips and attend to any of the questions that you have. So anyway, I just want to share with you my background briefly, and along with Dr. Mark Novak, a colleague of mine on the campus. So I left the West Bank in the 80s, and as a student, and then my plan was to get my master's and go back and teach at the local universities or colleges or schools, and I ended up not leaving, quite frankly, for whatever reason, but the opportunities were available, and I got drafted to continue to be part of the American education experience. And then technically the last time I went back for a long term was I was sent as a Fulbright scholar. I went to Bahrain for 5 months in 2009-10, and I went to the West Bank for the full year to Najah National University as a visiting faculty member, where I did my residency. So I left there as a student. I went back as a faculty for 1 full year. So it was extremely rewarding. So I have been in the States since 1986, and I got my doctorate from Arizona State University, and I have been working in the education system, mainly at the university level. I lived in Kansas and taught there for 5 years, and Arizona 9 years, and then I've been here in California for 22 years already. My life journey would not have been that rich had I not had that opportunity to come in and live in a different culture, in a different country, and certainly to get educated outside the region and the country in which I grew up and lived much of my childhood. And I can see the benefits personally, professionally, in many ways. I'll highlight some of those. Currently, I am the acting director of the doctoral program. We have an EDD program on campus, and but I have chaired many departments and many programs over the years and many institutions and all that. I can't, again, I always share with people, my students mainly, I would imagine, had I chosen to stay within my comfort zone and live the past 40 years of my life where I grew up, and I wonder how much I would have missed and what kind of perspective I would have had. To just sum it up, basically, I have learned a lot about who I am as a human being by interacting with people who are different, by living in places that were exotic and different from the region I came from. And I always share the benefits of that and encourage everyone to really get out of the prison of their own background and culture and experience and region to explore the world. And there's a lot of things out there. And I feel that I come to the States from the other hemisphere, and I have come a long way, but I still have a long way to go. So with that brief introduction, or lengthy brief introduction, I would like to turn it to my colleague who graciously accepted to join me, because I know his passion and he is genuinely interested in the international programs. He and I actually sit on an important task force here on campus to encourage international exchange and attracting students from overseas and sending students from overseas, because we have a few Fulbright scholars here, and we are, although in the planning stages, and we would like to see a lot more international students come to CSUB, but we are planning to recruit more and attract more international students. So Dr. Novak also traveled overseas as well, and he actually experienced firsthand his to be as an international student outside the United States. So Mark, would you like to say a few words?
Yes, just to say hello to everyone, welcome you all to this presentation. If I could say one thing about Education USA, it is a fabulous organization. And obviously some of you know this because you're online today, but almost anything you would want to know about coming to the United States and having a successful beginning of your experience, you can learn from the advisors in Education USA. They're absolutely fabulous in working with us and with me in my office whenever we go anywhere. So I just want to mention that to all of you. I want to give you practical advice. I think that's my role here today. One thing just to say, I was born in the United States near New York City and grew up here, but I spent 27 years in Canada. I actually went there as a graduate student. So I have some familiarity with the challenges you face, or anyone faces, when they go to a foreign country and try to live there and adapt. And so language was not a big issue in Canada for me, but certainly culture was. So I have some very practical advice for you. And I'll say one thing, and then I think we have some slides, and then I'd really be very interested in your questions. One thing we find in our office, and it's something I'd recommend to everyone, when you find your school and you decide where you're going to go and you are getting ready to be accepted, make sure you get your paperwork to the university in a timely way. This is one thing we find. We spend a tremendous amount of our time gathering paperwork from students, gathering financial information that they need to have, various kinds of documents, high school transcripts or undergraduate transcripts. These come in dribs and drabs, and if you could get that package together, you would find a much faster response on a campus. And second thing you wouldn't know is that graduate programs have to make a separate decision from the general admission to the university. And some of those offices, and I speak as someone who's been in the university all my life, are a little slower than any of us would like, you or me. They have vacation times, they have sabbaticals. There are times when the office is overwhelmed with applications. So all I can say is get everything in together as soon as you can when you've decided on your school, and get it in early, because you want to have your application accepted and ready to go to that school early enough in the spring or early summer so you can make your plans to actually arrive on campus in time for the coming year. But that's just a tiny bit of advice, but I'd like to make sure we have plenty of time for your questions. And I think Dr. Suleiman has some slides he wants to share, correct?
Right. Yeah. Thank you, Mark. I can't emphasize that enough, given that most of universities in the United States actually have deadlines. Sometimes, if your application is complete after the deadline, that might hold you back for another year. So make sure that you are proactive and have a complete file on time, so that the screening would take in time on time. The screening has to take its course, the review and the check marks for everything that you should have on the file. That takes time as well, but make sure that you do your part, and the institution, once your file is complete, they do their own screening, and they are timely and prompt in issuing that admission. And the next tier also is, reaching out to the embassy or consulate. It depends on where you are, because they need also to process that. Also, that takes time as well. So I can't emphasize enough being proactive and timely and detailed, and pay attention to all those items that should have go on your file before institutions can issue any admission letters to you. So anyway, if you go to the next slide, we will be happy to reach out to you. If you want to reach out to us, we can talk to you about specifics, but we want to cover the overarching premise of what it is like to be an international student in the United States, and the opportunities that you will gain personally and professionally and academically, and the benefits. And the Shraq has done an excellent job highlighting some of those benefits, where you're not going to just grow academically, but you will find yourself growing within your personal thinking and perspective, and you grow as a world citizen, basically. And in addition to that, not only you're going to get a lot of skills based on what your major is, based on what your field is, but also you're going to get a lot of international, global, universal skills to interact with people who are different. And that will affect your cognitive abilities, critical thinking skills, and the lifelong learning. So let's go to the next slide. And basically, I summarized all those into some broad terms. There is nothing really more valuable and rewarding than expanding your professional learning. I know we have a great education system in the Middle East, and we always look up to taking that to the next level. The United States has a great venue for expanding that professional learning and taking that to the next level, regardless of what your major is, regardless of what your professional goals in life are. There's ample, vast opportunity for you to expand that. And as I said, I wonder what kind of skills I would have if I had stayed in my world, in my region, in my country. But again, I would have missed a lot. The other thing too is exposure to diverse contexts where, luckily the world is getting closer and closer. Notwithstanding the interconnections that we make via the internet and the social media and everything else, but there is nothing like having to live in a different culture and different country and a different place. It's a totally different, rich experience that you don't want to miss out. You get exposed to a lot of realities and cultures and perspectives and ways of thinking and frameworks that are enriching to you. They contribute to your understanding as of yourself as a human being and to the understanding of people around you. And I think that's how we should really look at ourselves. From birth to death, we always learn every day, and we always take initiative to reach out beyond our own limits and boundaries of knowledge and skill and social milieu that produced us. The other aspect has to do with the competencies that you will gain, apart from the fact that you will be excelling in your field, learning a lot, getting the best education that you can imagine based on what field of study you are going to pursue. There are a lot of competencies that you develop. You'll develop multicultural competencies. You'll learn about different cultures. I'll give you an example. I grew up in the West Bank when it was under the Israeli occupation, way before the peace process took place. And, it would be extremely difficult for, at the time, even to interact with people or anyone or meet anyone outside the West Bank because of the restrictions and the socio-political conditions and all those things that were going on at the time in the 70s and 80s. And when I came to the States, I met students from across the globe, mainly people who have shared the language and the religion and the culture and all that. People from Morocco, from the Gulf states, from the Levant, from Africa, and all over. And ironically, I would not have even been able to travel across the border, probably an hour or two, to interact with people who share that culture and religion and social values and so on. But I had that opportunity in the States. Arizona State had still has actually a great international program where many students from the Middle East and Africa and across the globe earn their degrees, bachelor's, master's, doctorates in all fields, and that to me was an enrichment of experiences, given that I would have not had that opportunity had I stayed where I was. Also, you will feel about yourself a sense of fulfillment and a sense of pride as a human being, where you become a cultural broker, or where you are going to learn about others, but also you're going to educate others about who you are, the essence of humanity, the value system you represent, the social and cultural values that you grew up with, that all are cast to the same mold of similarities at the deeper level when we interact with people who are different. You will interact with people who may have different religions and languages and nationalities, and nonetheless you find yourself as a cultural broker where you reconcile all those similarities across humans, regardless of their backgrounds and circumstances. So that is fulfilling in itself. You become, again, part of the global citizenship that we all seek to accomplish sometime down the road in our lives. And actually, that's one of the premises of international exchange. There's a lot of research about this, and the Fulbright, for instance, is a flagship of international exchange, where this Senator Fulbright, in the wake of World War I and II, he had a vision that after the world got sick of bombs and wars and deaths and destruction and all that, he had that vision of establishing peace globally through education, through international exchange, through learning with one another, about one another, and dismantling all those barriers that could otherwise basically create conflict. So I think this in itself is a noble cause for all humanity, regardless of who you are and where you are and what your goals are. There are a lot of universal aspirational dreams that all of us have to live in a more meaningful, peaceful, harmonious world and a better world in many instances than those for our of those who before us, our parents and grandparents. But again, that would not have been possible had without that opportunity to again get to be part of that international exchange and international education and reaching and education and seeking education beyond where you are. Okay, next slide, please. Okay, again, this sounds redundant given the lengthy comments under each of the domains, but you are going to be enriching your experiences and the experiences of the people you interact with. You are, you know, I always share with people a quote that says, "It's amazing how much you can enlarge your world by acknowledging everyone else's." So you will be part of that process of reconciliation, cross-cultural communication, and that's a two-way street. Not only you're going to enrich your own experience, but you are going to enrich the experiences of others who may not know much as much as you do. The global networking, you know, I 2 weeks ago I participated in the Fulbright pre-departure orientation, and the great program, but the great thing about the State Department international exchange programs is the professional networks that they create within each cohort and beyond. So you will find yourself as part of an important network. Education USA has a very solid international outreach, and to be part of that is a prestige in itself. So I think this is one of the rewarding aspects of it, is you become part of a global network of professionals and educators and civic leaders worldwide. Also, again, is much needed. Trust me, wherever you go, we need that reconciliation among humans to understand one another. And I was sharing with the Fulbright grantees that keep in mind that the seek to understand first is to seek to be understood second. So you are going to interact with people who are different from you, who had no idea. In fact, they may have the wrong idea about who you are, and vice versa. You may have the wrong idea about who they are. So the idea of becoming a cultural broker would allow both of you to become on the same wavelength, so that you understand one another, you narrow those gaps. And you can read anything, you can see anything, you can, you know, using technology and reach out to any resource and all that, but it is totally different when you have that human interaction and international rapport you build. It's a two-way street where you become part of the understanding process of the human experience and find ways of how you can reconcile those. Also, it is empowering. I would like to look at this as an outcome. You really become empowered as a human being. You fulfill your own goals, but also you feel a sense of accomplishment and self-actualize yourself. Yes, I have been outside my own social and cultural makeup and region and nationality and you know, boundaries that I have always felt comfortable with, but getting out of that and becoming part of a global network, of a global society, is always empowering. not only for yourself, but those who are around you. Okay, so let's see. Next slide, please. So in short, you're going to find studying abroad is a transformative experience. You're going to be a totally different person. So much so, actually, when I went to An-Najah in 2016-17, they say you can never go back home again. I went as a different person because I changed a lot in many good ways, of course. So you will see yourself transforming your lives in many, many meaningful ways that could not have been afforded otherwise. Also, you certainly grow professionally and personally and academically, and you can do a lot more in life and get to solve a lot of problems and find many different ways to solve everyday issues that you encounter and challenges that you need to overcome. Again, you understand who you are as a human being by interacting with people who are different from you. And again, there's nothing more rewarding than accomplishing your own goals and dreams, especially when you have those early on, going through the high school, maybe junior high, and when you get to college and all of a sudden you find yourself, wow, I have come to accomplish what I needed to accomplish. And looking back, it's always rewarding. And as such, you're going to serve as a model, not only for your kids and grandkids, but also for people around you. And I think that's fulfilling. That's basically what the premise of what it means to be a human. It's an ongoing journey. Humanity is an ongoing journey. It's never been a destination. And as such, albeit with challenges, sometimes culture shock and everything else, always enjoy it because it does go fast. I can't believe it. I've been here for about 40 years. It felt like 40 days, frankly. But as you do that, enjoy every moment of it, and it's going to be extremely joyous and rewarding in many aspects. Okay, I think that pretty much sums up some of our thoughts. Again, final word, I would tell you that the U.S. Education USA, the Fulbright, and many, many other programs, MED East and others, they don't compete with one another, they coordinate with one another. And I think I urge you to continue exploring your opportunities. And there are many of them. These organizations and programs have a rich menu for you. So if you are a student getting out of high school and you're wondering where you should go, what goals you have in mind, they have a menu for you. If you are a college student in your senior year and you want to have ambition to get a master's degree, they have a lot of options that you can explore through those programs, and they coordinate with one another. They don't compete with one another. All of them revolve around giving you that opportunity that you can take advantage of to help yourself move from one stage to another and hone your skills, professional, personal, and achieve your academic goals. With that, I think we'll take it. Mark, you want to add anything? By the way, Dr. Novak was hired on campus. One of the main roles he had to undertake was to internationalize the campus. And I'll tell you, he's a delightful person to work with. He's done an excellent job reaching out to institutions overseas and welcoming international students and all that. So I think he can speak to that as well. Mark, you want to talk about what we do in the extended university?
Yeah, I would just say one more thing for students that might be helpful. You see the website here. There's also one called Global, global.csub.edu. And if you go to that site, it's specifically for international students. And if they go to that site, it's pretty quick. You can see who you are as a student, whether you're coming as a study abroad or you're seeking a degree. And then you can find your way through our campus that way. One thing I would just say, and we've covered so much already, I think soon we should hear from the students, is that there are so many choices, Dr. Suleiman, in the US, that it can be a bit overwhelming for people. And Ashraf gave such a good explanation at the beginning of different levels of programs, different types of programs, schools and regions. In fact, there are even financial differences between schools. There are financial differences about where you live and how much it costs to live in New York City or Los Angeles versus living in Bakersfield or in some smaller town that might have an excellent university, say in Iowa. So these are really very, very challenging questions for a student coming from a country outside the US, does not understand so much about the subtleties and geography. But once again, I think Education USA can help. Advisors can help there, but also we find that a lot of students will locate where there's relatives, where they know somebody, or where a friend or a colleague has already gone to school. And so any kind of advice like that at a very personal level is extremely helpful trying to sort through all of this. And I'll say one other thing, and that is when you're looking for a graduate school, this is a bit of advice, and you're looking to go into some professional field, whether it's in the STEM fields like engineering or computer science, or it's in business, which are the big areas that we find people coming for, look into what the opportunities are for optional practical training, postgraduate internships. This is really where you move out of the university and into your professional field. And I think if you're coming to the US, one of the values of coming here is to get engaged postgraduate with some sort of business entity or an engineering firm or computer science firm, depending on what you're doing, so that if you go back home, that's fine. Then you'll take that tremendous knowledge with you. And some of these companies will place you back, say a Microsoft as an example, will place you back in a home country and you work for that company there. So I think it's good to look when you're looking at schools, also take a look at postgraduate opportunities. We call them optional practical training or curricular practical training. So you may want to look into that as you look at your degrees. So you put yourself in and I'll give you one example. I worked as an administrator at San Jose State University, and that is one of the key universities in Silicon Valley. And so without promoting a competitive school, I guess, I would say San Jose State gives you wonderful opportunities to move from there right into those large corporate settings, such as, well, whether it's Google or Facebook or any of the other companies in the Silicon Valley, San Francisco area. So there's an example where if you choose that school, it may not be a famous school. San Jose State University is not famous. It is a great jumping off place, however, into those professional fields. You'll make contacts with people immediately who are working outside the university, and will give you opportunities from your professors onward. So that's just an example, though, of finding a school that matches with your professional and career goals. And then you can see whether the academic program is going to fit, but also whether the postgraduate opportunities are there for you. So those are just some comments to start. And I'm sort of ready to hear from students. I don't know what is next.
Sana and Marwa,
Yes.
do we need to translate any of those highlights or in Arabic, or
Of
pretty much
course.
everybody understands what was going on, I hope?
Of course, definitely. I would like just to first thank you both for all of the valuable information that you have shared, and also Ashraq for the summary about the different degrees and the application requirements for graduate study in the US. So first we have a message from Abdullah, and he is thanking you for everything that you have shared. And he is saying that he is currently completing his PhD in Spain, and he is working on his dissertation, which is about customer-based brand equity of different tourism destinations in the Middle East. And he is asking if he can actually complete his education once he is done with his PhD in the US in the same field of marketing.
Yeah, I think I read that. I think he's referring to a
Postgraduate, yeah, doctor.
Postdoctoral fellowships. There are a lot of those out there. I think the best advice we can give is basically navigate through some of those institutions that have such a program, and connect with some faculty member or scholar at that institution, where they can actually offer an opportunity for research or beyond the doctoral degree, a project of some kind, and these are around. It's just have to navigate and try to find one who may be interested in that field, and then connect with them, and they'll go from there. I know the Fulbright program also has opportunities of fellowships beyond the doctoral program, and I think that's one of the things that you may want to explore. Again, as I said earlier, there are menus for all kinds of scholarships and studies and everything else. It's just you have to navigate through those opportunities and see what connections you can make so that they can buy into your project and or what you have to offer, and things will take their course and become easier at that point. And I think many institutions that are doctoral granting, they have a lot of fellowships beyond the doctoral program. So,
thank you so much, Dr. Suleiman. We actually received also different questions from the registration form. And one of them is, do you think it is better for a candidate to have some working experience after they finish their undergraduate study, before they apply to a graduate program? And, how does a professional experience prepare a student to succeed in the program that they will apply to?
Just a comment on that. There are some programs, especially in the field of business, where they will require the student have some experience prior to coming into an MBA program, for example. So that's something that would probably state that in their requirements for admission. And are people hearing me?
Yes.
Yes.
Oh, okay. And so that's one thing. And then in the fields like engineering and STEM, it's certainly possible to go on from an undergraduate to a graduate degree without the experience. Many people don't do that. They go out and they get some experience in the engineering field, partly because there's such a demand for those people, they can often find work fairly quickly. But I would say, by way of advice, that to really move up in the fields of engineering, computer science, computer engineering in particular, the master's degree is almost required. And it is possible to go from an undergraduate degree right into a graduate degree in those fields.
Thank you so much. Yes. Would you like to add anything, Dr. Suleiman?
no, Mark hit the nail on the head. I think, again, each program is unique, like some business programs and nursing programs and education programs. Some of them require that you have a teaching experience as well as a credential or a teaching license, because of the nature of the programs and all that. So again, that is based on what it is that you are studying, what it is that you are going to be building upon, what goals you have academically and professionally, and again, making that connection with that institution and the faculty and personnel who run that program will be a really nice step, so that they understand where you are and where you need to go, and they will facilitate that process for you.
Thank you so much. Our next question is, what kind of experiential learning opportunities are available at CSU Bakersfield for international students, such as teaching assistantships or internships or research opportunities?
Yeah, good question. I think for the most part, most universities that have graduate programs, it's a lot easier for a master's or doctoral candidate to get an assistantship or research assistantship and all that. I think much of those for international students do not take place before you arrive. I can give you an example. When I came to the States, I didn't have a scholarship. My parents were not rich, so but whatever money my dad saved, he helped me, in the process. But when I got there, I started the first semester. That was costly. I had to pay full tuition, and then I had to basically cover all the expenses, housing and food, and you name it. And then by the second semester, based on my GPA, I got a scholarship where they started giving me tuition waiver. So rather than paying at the time $6,000 for tuition, I just paid $300. And then I became a research assistant. And by the time I was ready to get to my doctorate, I got actually a fellowship from the Department of Education in Washington, D.C. that actually sponsored my entire program. And that's how I completed my doctorate. So I think initially it might be very difficult when you get in, but all those opportunities are available when you are at the institution. And I think that's why the Amity East and Education USA and the Fulbright will give you that venue. It is not easy. It's not cheap really to study outside the region, let alone in the United States or in Europe and all that. And that's why this is a great opportunity for anyone who can take advantage of this and get into this. And a lot of other windows and doors will be opened sometime down the road, so long that you shine, and no doubt you will shine, because I think the brain drain movement in the United States, there's a long history of that. But I know everyone who comes on a student visa and or for academic goals, they always shine because that's what they have in mind, and there is a way. But the good thing about the American education system is they invest into the expertise and the intellectual capital international students bring to the institution, and they cultivate that. They make it easy for them. They give them opportunities to continue to grow because they are contributing to the institution as well. So I think the tricky thing is, how do you get to that institution? And once you get there, things will fall in place. I think you are muted, Marwa. You're muted.
Sorry about that. So our next question is about diversity. How diverse is the group of students, faculty, and administrators for graduate study at CSU Bakersfield?
Yeah, actually, there might be a fallacy for a lot of us growing up in a different world where everybody speaks English and everyone is white, rich, Christian, blue-eyed American. There's no such thing. All institutions by default are diverse. There's a huge diversity in the United States. There are thousands of cultures and hundreds of languages and ethnicities and all that. The international student body is yet another added cultural richness because they bring a unique perspective. As Dr. Novak pointed out, there are a lot of first and third and second generation hyphenated Americans, I'm going to use that term, whereby they originally came from the Middle East. They migrated from the region maybe 100 years ago or 50 years ago, and they got established. So in any institution, you will find that diversity, and we are proud of that diversity, a lot of diverse initiatives. We have students and communities from all walks of life, from different races and colors and nationalities and cultures and backgrounds. It is diverse. Again, I was pleasantly surprised to see the huge number of international students when I was at Arizona State. I also was pleasantly surprised to learn about the different cultures and ethnicities. I remember actually I was invited to talk about diversity when I was teaching at Arizona State after I finished my doctorate. There was a group of 20 provosts and deans who came from the entire Middle East, Palestinians, Syrians, Lebanese, from the Gulf states, and from Egypt, from North Africa, Morocco, and all those. So they wanted to learn about the American education system and the diversity of the population. So I was amazed by some of the stereotypes that even provosts and deans had about the United States. But again, it is deeply rooted in the American civilization and culture. This is a diverse society. And the microcosm of that society is reflected in its schools in the K through 20, in the K through 12, as well as in the higher education system. Again, as an international student, you're part of that diversity. And it is very uplifting and very rewarding, because that gives you a lot of ample opportunity to interact with people who are different.
Can I say something also, again, a very practical note? For the international students on our campus, we have a specific advisor who advises the international students. This is particular in the School of Business, I'm thinking now. But you may find that on other campuses as well, that the international student is understood to need a little more assistance. And sometimes it's an international, well, it's almost always an international office. There may be an international advisor, a specific individual. There may be an international club, various cultural groups students join. So there's a lot of the opportunity to participate in the campus. But my practical advice is, when and if you ever get to a US school, your advisor is going to be extremely important to you. What I have found, I think Dr. Suleiman will agree, there are so many rules and regulations inside the institution, never mind getting there, but after you get there, then there are subtleties. You need to take this course or that course, or you need to fulfill a certain requirement for your degree. And your advisor is going to be so valuable to you in helping you navigate that. Before you get into any kind of difficulty, they will say, okay, next year you must take these courses, or you must be enrolled in so many credits in order to maintain your status as an international student. Whatever it is, many, many different situations can arise. You may need to go home, for example, for a period of time. How do you do that? How do you renew your visa if you need to do that? Are you going to need to prepare to go? Advisors will help with all of these things. So just be aware that when you're stepping into another culture, and the university is its own culture within US culture, to have an advisor, and every school will have someone like this that can give you the kind of advice you need. Don't be shy or ashamed or feel like I'm taking up someone's time. These folks, and some of them work out of my office, are there to help you navigate the system. So understand that there's a great deal of support. One thing I have to say, Dr. Suleiman, I have another meeting I have to go to in a few minutes. So I'm wondering if maybe I'll hear one more question, and then I'll have to take off if that's okay.
Great. Yeah, anytime. Appreciate your time. I know you have full schedule, but is there any other questions for Dr. Novak? I'll stay around. I have more flexible time schedule.
Yes, we do have a few questions. So our next question is, are there graduate education workshops for undergraduates?
I think Mark kind of pointed this out, and I was going to add to his comments that I've seen firsthand I have firsthand experience how that support system, knowing that the advisors know that you come in with a culture shock and everything else, everything is different, but they hold your hands and they help you navigate through everything that you need to navigate and get enrolled in a timely fashion and answer any of the questions you have. Now, there are a lot of orientations going to that question. Once you get to the States, there will be a lot of orientations and workshops and advising sessions that will actually provide you with a lot of specifics, especially as they pertain to your path and roadmap at that institution. So those are tailored to the needs of those cohorts who come in. Let's say if you are going to be attending a doctoral program in education, there will be a series of workshops and orientations that will actually guide you through that process to set the stage of how you are going to begin meaningfully and finish that program successfully.
Thank you so much. And we can actually end our session with one more question, and we'll definitely send a follow-up emails to the questions that we could not answer today. And so the question is, what are some of the challenges international graduate students experience on campus?
Beyond the culture shock, I think you will overcome that easily, quickly. Probably, as I said, it would have been a lot more difficult during my time because, I was born and raised in, I was born in Nablus, but I was raised in a small town that didn't have telephones. So let alone there was no internet, no email and all that. So all that probably is a lot easier now. The culture shock is not a huge issue. Probably beyond that, the getting adjusted to the new lifestyle as well as financial costs and everything, and being away from family and friends, it's not easy, but it's doable. And again, there's a lot of ways you can fill in some of those gaps by getting focused on your goals academically and professionally. And again, as Dr. Novak pointed out, everyone is support, a lot of layers of support, networks and safety nets around you. People are conscious about the fact that you are trying to belong and you're trying to make that adjustment, and they do everything possible to make your life easy.
Dr. Suleiman, I'm going to tell a small story from my time in Canada, and I'm sure you have 1,000 of these stories as well. But I was only 21 years old when I went to my graduate program in Canada, and they had something called a sherry party. Sherry is a drink, and it's very British, and Canada is part of the Commonwealth, but I had never experienced anything like that. I came from a town in New Jersey, and we lived in normal American life. So anyway, came to the sherry party, and it was about 5 o'clock in the evening. I was very hungry, and I was a young guy, and we came around with little bits of food, little we call them hors d'oeuvres, right? And so every time they would come by, I would grab 2 or 3, and I would go off to a corner and eat them really fast, because I would think this is like my dinner. But of course, you're only supposed to take one, and then you were supposed to sip a little bit of sherry. And I thought, I didn't get that. To me, it was like, okay, here's a chance to have dinner, and I don't have to pay for dinner tonight. So it's, you look back on these experiences, you think how innocent I was, how inexperienced, not sophisticated, but it works out okay. And then, as Dr. Suleiman, I'm sure, has all these stories we have in our heads now of things we did and things we didn't know, and how we learned and grew. And now I knew what a sherry party was. And I sort of afterwards realized I was probably not doing the right thing. So, and then these students will all have the same kinds of experiences, and it will be fine.
Yeah, I looking at the chat, trying to, I think we answered much of the questions, but one of the things that I think there's a question from Hanadi Abu Jazzar, I believe. The good thing about the American education system is flexible. So you may have a bachelor's in sociology, you can get a master's in business, you can get a doctorate in education. So, that flexibility is out there. And I think it is also encouraged, because you don't want to cave into one line of study that will be eventually limiting. So you can get a bachelor's in one thing, master's in another, and the doctorate in something else. So there's flexibility.
Thank you so much for sharing your stories and your experiences and personal backgrounds with our audience today. We really appreciate it. And I would like to thank everyone also for joining our session today. We will send you a follow-up email with this recording if you would like to watch it again. And also we will send you the Education USA website if you would like to contact the nearest Education USA Advising Center at your country. And of course, I will share the links that Dr. Novak and Suleiman talked about during today's presentation. Thank you, everyone, and enjoy the rest of your day or evening. Bye-bye.
Thank you. حظ سعيد، إن شاء الله نشوفكم قريب بالولايات المتحدة الأمريكية.
إن شاء الله. شكرا جزيلا.
مع السلامة. شكرا.
مع السلامة.
مع الله.